Alrighty, welcome back to excuse me, Shut Up and Ball NBA edition. Playoffs are here, and as per usual, I am joined by Mr. John Harris. How are you this fine Saturday, Mr. John?
I'm doing good. The NBA playoffs have started. Uh, I mean, we'll get into the whole first round later, but Miami and Milwaukee just ended. What a game to start off the playoffs. Obviously, the play-in was sort of the start, and those were exciting. I mean, we'll talk about those too, but it's this time of year in the NBA, this is when everything gets real exciting. So I'm pumped.
Yeah, I am too. Even though, as most probably know, listening, my Spurs will not be a part of that, which we'll talk about. But yeah, still some exciting games to look forward to. So yeah, let's just jump right in and talk about those playing games. Obviously, for the West, the Lakers and the Grizzlies were the ones to come out of the playing games. But let's start in the East because it seemed like it was more cut and dry East. Your Celtics took care of business. It was against the Pacers, right? That's who they played.
The Wizards.
The Wizards, and Tatum dropped 50-50,
Yep.
which unfortunately, and I mean, let's just get through this first. I mean, beat the Wizards, and the Wizards ended up beating the Pacers.
The Pacers. Yep.
So we get that matchup. So obviously, I assume you're happy for your Celtics. And I'm sorry, they played Brooklyn, correct?
Yeah, now they're the seventh seed and Brooklyn's the second seed, so they play them.
So yeah, thoughts, feelings going into the series, especially how. Well, first of all, that game I didn't actually get to watch that game. I'm assuming you did. Um, I forget the score, but it seemed like it was just obviously looking. It was just a Tatum takeover game.
Yeah, I mean, Boston won by 18, I think it was. So it wasn't necessarily a close game. And yeah, it was really just Jayson Tatum. I mean, me and my roommates were actually rewatching The Last Dance right now. And this Tatum run right now, if he continues this in the playoffs and goes crazy, I mean, the young Michael Jordan year two against the Celtics, like there was no shot they were going to win the series, but Jordan went off. That's sort of how the Celtics are at best looking right now. Is maybe Tatum goes off for a few games against the almighty super team Nets, but there's only so much one man can do. And against the Wizards, it got it done, but it does suck to I don't know, just be in a spot where I mean, I read a whole article the other day about like who's to blame for the Celtics' disappointing season, and to really think that like Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown both came into their own this season, both having All-Star seasons. Tatum might even be on an All NBA team, and is they're at where they're at, so. It was exciting that they got the win. I'm glad they made the playoffs. I know some people they talk about wanting to lose and get a bit of draft pick because do you really have a shot at the Nets? But once again, like we talked about, I think last episode, I'd want to make the playoffs. I don't care who we play because realistically, whether it's Philly or Brooklyn, they're better than us. There's mismatch issues. Who's going to guard Durant? Who's going to guard Embiid? Who's going to guard Harden? All that kind of stuff. Um, and so just making it, seeing the young guys get some more playoff experience, maybe Tatum goes off for a few games and starts to build confidence for, future playoff runs, then hey, I'm happy. But yeah, I mean, there wasn't too much hope, I guess, built out of the playing game because they did what they were supposed to do.
Yeah. So all right, yeah, and I mean once again we kind of expected them to take care of business against really
Yeah.
whoever they played in the play-in, but the other team, Washington Wizards. I mean maybe a little bit of surprise. I mean obviously I know there's that stat at one point they're like 0.16 chance to get into the playoffs or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Obviously they've turned it around. And honestly, I was a little bit surprised they were able to win both games. It seemed like Beal was really affected by that hamstring. I know the first game, I think he was like holding it at one point against the
Yeah.
Celtics. But regardless, I mean, for Indiana, it's just really like I don't even know what's going on with them. It just seems like injuries because I've been their main issue, guys. And I don't think Levert even played. Miles Turner's been out for a minute. I think Sabonis just kind of got back, him and Brogdon. So if you're a Pacers fan, I mean, I know the whole coach. There's like a full fiasco with their coach a few weeks or months ago about that. So I mean, we'll see what happens with Indiana, but we know they have talent. It's just I think the biggest thing is now they need to stay healthy. So next year. But regardless, I'm glad for Westbrook and the Wizards that they were able to get into the playoffs. Because once again, it's like we talked about in the Westbrook episode, just a guy that brings a certain attitude and belief into the team. Even though, I mean, we can all say Wizards not a very talented team, especially with Bradley Beal not 100%. After that, it's just not much. Rui Hachimura, who's still finding his way, and Davis Bertans. So yeah, I mean, I obviously I don't expect the Wizards to make noise going forward. Although it will be fun that they play the Sixers, like we mentioned before in our matchups episode. It will be fun to see him and Embiid in the playoff series because hey, maybe Washington can, at least take a game or two and make Philly sweat a little bit. So, and obviously we'll go over that in a few. But regardless, happy for the Wizards and the fact that they got in.
Yeah, the Wizards, the one unfortunate part for them is I think out of every team in the East, Philly's like probably the biggest issue
Yeah,
that like presents itself for them because I mean, Embiid's gonna have his way. I mean,
yeah,
he's gonna do that against most teams anyway. But the Wizards specifically, like I think Thomas Bryant was their starting center and he's out right now.
been out.
And so I don't know who, and even he was like not really good at defense. So it's questionable on who's really going to be able to stop Embiid. Also Simmons and his size, his perimeter ability, it's going to be a tough matchup for both Westbrook and Bradley Beal because of him. And so it's just going to be a hard matchup. Maybe optimistically, I think maybe Washington take a game because they have been pretty good this year against teams that are above 500. Um, but like I said, that's coming against teams like Brooklyn, who although on paper they are better, it's a better matchup for Washington because they don't have that dominant inside presence where Washington's really weak. So yeah, I mean, good for the Wizards. I'm happy that Westbrook and the crew made the playoffs. I wonder how this impacts Bradley Beal and Westbrook's future in Washington, because although Bradley Beal has said that he wants to stay in Washington, that doesn't necessarily, and they've said they want to keep him. That doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot because in the NBA it's a business, and if they think this is really their peak that they can get out of these two together, they might try to move on. So who knows? Yeah, I don't think they'll be a super competitive team, but I know the Embiid Westbrook beef. If there are some close games, maybe some heated moments, that'd be pretty cool if it was revived a little bit.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Like fun to see. So, all right, and then now shifting gears to the West, had some good games there. Obviously, the Lakers with Warriors game. That first game was it went down the wire. LeBron, had hit the long shot. Which, to be honest, I'm not buying the three rims thing. That's something like if you're drunk, not if you if you get poked in the eye, it's more blurry. You know what I mean? Just hard to.
Yeah.
Three rims is like you got hit in the head or you got actually like knocked out or really discombobulated. Not that once again I'm sure you actually got hit in the eye and things like that, but I don't think that's maybe a little bit exaggeration. But hey, regardless, they won. What does it matter? So Lakers getting a 7 seed. I think we may have talked about this before, and we'll talk about it later. But not great for the Phoenix Suns. They probably wanted a Golden State, but once we get to that, and then unfortunately for Golden State, come around and play the Grizzlies, who once again close game with the Spurs, but that game really showed for the Spurs. Just we don't have a closer. I mean, DeRozan was I forgot at one point. At one point he was like 3 for 6. It was pretty bad. Just a lot of the mid ranges that he typically makes in the regular season was not going down because it's just those are tough shots to make, and really no one else get anything going except for Rudy Gay, which I will say, like I put out chat. I mean, Rudy Gay, it seemed like he didn't want to go home. He was hitting some dumb threes at the end to try to keep us in it. So I'm not. I think he's still with us in a year, contract wise, but I mean, he may be one of those guys, and I know he hasn't had a graceful end to his career. He had at one point looked like a budding star, but wouldn't be surprised if we see maybe he calls it from there. I mean, I think he can play another year, but who knows? Just it seemed like one of those performances where he really left it all out there in the court, and he may want to just say, I'm done. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah. So once again, like I mentioned, Grizzlies beat Spurs, and then they hang on and beat the Warriors the other night. It was last night, right? Yeah, it was last night.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I had a rough night last night. There's Draymond missed a layup at the was at the end of regulation, I think,
Yep.
right? I think it was both
Mm,
regulation and overtime. He
yeah, I
had
think
some
he did
pretty
it
bad
twice.
shots, layups. It wasn't like a shot too, it was a layup. So, unfortunately for Golden State fans, you not only lose the game to get to 7, you also lose the game just to get in. So, yeah. So the Grizzlies punched their ticket in; they deserve so. I think I texted you this, but I mean, I will say I think John Morant. There's so much focus around Zion, and deservedly so. Zion's a great player, but I think I feel like, and I'm included. I just feel like we forget that John Morant is in that class. And to be honest, as of right now, I know Zion's on the top of fourth, but Ja's up there. Like I, I think he deserves to be in the conversation for top 5 point guards in the league, just all around. Because I mean, what he's done with Memphis. I mean, no Jaren Jackson most of the year. I know he's back now, but still, it's not even like 100% Jaren Jackson Jr. And I know they got solid pieces, but no real studs around them. And the fact that this Memphis team has hung around and stayed in the playoff picture on a down year health wise and things like that, it speaks volumes. And I think that's because of John Moran. I think we saw that last night because he was, I mean, virtually unstoppable when he was getting going. So, um, yeah, I'm excited to see them go up against Utah. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, what were your thoughts in regards to how the West shook out?
Um, the first two games I thought kind of went as expected. It feels like the Grizzlies, like you said, with Ja and just the young talent they have, their team on the rise. I know, like I agree with everything you said about the comparisons between Ja and Zion. A lot of people, and even for Zion, I think with like LaMelo Ball and all the hype that's kind of around him, like people are now forgetting about Zion, which is kind of crazy because last year he was the guy that was all over Sports Center, you know. But John Morant even lesser so because he plays for the Memphis
Yeah.
Grizzlies. Like they're not a big market team, but I think it's impressive that he has led this team to the playoffs because Zion hasn't done that yet. And although you can make an argument on who's the better team, I mean, I don't think there's any other guys who've made the All Star game at any point in their career on the Grizzlies. Correct me if I'm wrong. To where the Pelicans, they had Brandon Ingram. Obviously, Steven Adams never made an All Star game, but he's always been like a really solid center. They've had guys who are have proven themselves in this league to where the Grizzlies, it's a lot of young guys and like Jonas Valanciunas. And so it's really impressive to me, honestly, that Josh stepped up in this big moment. And I think, yeah, he absolutely deserves to be in that conversation for top 5 point guards. For me, it's a little tougher just because the point guard position is just so deep, and also there's so many weird players like James Harden and Luca and all these guys who like
I don't
aren't
count them as
really
point
point
guards. I
guards,
count them as like
but like
scoring
some
guards.
people, yeah, would make like the argument that they are. Um, so anyway, there's just a lot of definitions that go into that whole argument, but impressed by the Grizzlies. I truly didn't think they were going to beat the Warriors. I mean, just before the playing tournament started, they had played the Warriors, and I think Steph dropped like 40 something.
He almost did again. He had
So
39. I mean,
yeah, and so I just figured that on top of the defense that we saw from Golden State against the Lakers. I mean, Draymond was fantastic. Andrew Wiggins did a really good job. Like the whole team was just bought in defensively. I thought if they can do that against the Lakers, they should be able to stop the Grizzlies. They don't have the same offensive firepower that the Lakers do. But I mean, like we said, John Morant, he stepped up big time. The Grizzlies as a whole, I mean, they did what they needed to do and they came out with the win. So uh I I'm I wasn't shocked the Grizzlies did it because I thought that there's a little piece of me that they could, but I wasn't predicting them to. And I wonder I don't know if they consider the playing part of the regular season or playoffs, or maybe it's just neither.
it's neither because the
Um,
stats don't apply. So Tatum's 50-point game
okay.
won't go down on his
Yeah.
stat
So
sheet.
I
I
don't know
I
if this
think
impacts.
I think it should go. I think it should be a playoff stat just because it's for the playoffs. It's a not
Yeah.
regular season game. It's So I personally I would say it should count as a playoff stat.
Yeah, I agree. But I wonder how this impacts. I mean, I didn't think Steph Curry was going to win MVP anyway, but the narrative that even we have been following was if Steph can get this team to the playoffs, he's probably the MVP. and he wasn't able to do it. I mean, he had a great effort and all that kind of stuff, but ultimately they failed. They didn't make it there, and they're the ninth seed in the West. So yeah, I mean, it was still an amazing season from him. And the one thing I'll say about the Warriors is don't sleep on them next year because they could be scary with Clay coming back,
Get Wiseman
with
back.
Wiseman back. Oubre was hurt. I don't know his contract situation if he's still technically on the team
He
next
probably
year,
will be.
but
But
I
then
mean,
they may have another high pick depending on what Minnesota's is not in the top three.
yep,
So they'll have. I think they'll still have theirs too, and theirs is going to be a lottery pick. I mean, it'll probably be a low end lottery pick, but still. So they could have two first
yep,
round picks to play with. So they could easily also use those if it's like 4 or 5, the Minnesota one. If there's, they could always trade up too. So, or they just get two good players. So,
it's just scary, man, because they have the ammo. Obviously, I think at this point in their career, Steph, Clay, and Draymond are going to retire as Warriors. I mean, they've
hmm
accomplished so much together. They still have the talent to compete. Like, I don't think those guys are going anywhere, but I mean, they still have the ammo, like with those picks, James Wiseman, Andrew Wiggins, like they have the ammo to really pull off any trade they want. Um, and so that's pretty scary.
yeah. So we'll have to see. I think the biggest thing obviously is Clay getting back on the courts because
Yep.
it's because like I said, the way Steph was defended this year, it's much tougher to defend him that way if there's another, if there's Clay Thompson sitting on the other end. So
That was my first thought when the Lakers game ended was the triple team onto Steph with Anthony Davis coming out to guard him at 3 point line.
yeah,
In that situation with a Clay Thompson on the court, Clay hits that shot and
yeah,
they tie the game.
yeah, and and like